Hi, I am Murat. I am currently a postdoc at Adaptive Systems Group in Humboldt University of Berlin. First, I would like to thank conference organizers, and today I will introduce our work titled as Modeling Robot Trust based on emergent emotions in an interactive task. In this presentation, I will introduce our work by answering two different research questions. The first one will be, how could a humanoid robot develop trust in an interaction partner? The second one will be, how could we embed a computational model of trust on a humanoid robot to differentiate guiding strategies of an interaction partner and select the trustworthy one? To answer these questions, we frame our motivation in the context of intelligent social interactions, in which trust plays an important role. And it is worthwhile to note that trust is not the only component of the intelligent social interactions. And there are other components like co-representation, theory of mind, and multimodal integrations. Yet in this presentation, we will mostly focus on trust, and more specifically, we will focus on robot trust. Trust in state-of-art studies has been mostly addressed in human-human or human-robot interactions. And the studies related to developing robot trust in interaction partners remains relatively limited in the literature. The studies related to human trust in artificial systems mostly focused on the factors that plays important roles to form a trust. Among these factors, there are cognitive loads, level of automations, culture, predictability, and emotions. In our study, we focused cognitive load as a critical factor to develop a robot trust. Here are some of the conclusions that we retrieved from the literature. Although these conclusions were introduced in the context of human-robot interaction, we propose that the same relationship between cognitive load and trust could be implemented to form a robot trust. So to form a robot trust in interaction partners, we put forward the following proposals. The first one is the emergence of high-level emotions in the neural system of the agent can be formulated by the computational energy regulation need of the agent. The second proposal is interactions that lead to low energy consumptions or less amount of cognitive load will trigger the engaging emotions to increase the agent's well-being, and therefore the agent will form trust in that interaction partner. So to implement these proposals, we employed the Pepper robot to perform an interactive visual recalling task with three different instructors, and these instructors have different guiding strategies, which are reliable, less reliable, and random. Here, the reliable instructor aims to reduce cognitive load of the robot by providing useful cues or guidelines for visual recalling. The less reliable instructor follows the strategy that increases cognitive load of the robot, and the last instructor just make random decisions for robot. In this setting, the robot was endowed with two cognitive modules, which are auto-associative memory and the internal reward. In this experiment, the task is an interactive sequential visual recalling task. Here, we construct a visual scene, and robot select one pattern from that scene, like in here, and that pattern displayed in a full screen mode to the robot, and robot perceive that pattern with its cameras. Then the computational cost of perceptual processing, this perceptual processing is employed to extract an internal reward that is associated with that specific pattern. Then we question that whether the robot will discover the policies to visit patterns that are associated with less amount of energy or less amount of cognitive load for visual recalling. So here's our first cognitive modules. And to form an auto-associative memory, we used a high-order Hopfield network, and we trained this network with 5 different visual patterns. And after forming this memory, the robot processed any visual stimulus to reach a converged state by asynchronously changing the weights in the memory. For instance, if we query, after forming the memory, if we query this network with a trained pattern, the number of the required change bits will be less than if you query the same network with noisy pattern or pattern that completely new to the network. And here we use the number of the change bits to reach a steady state as an energy or cognitive load for cost of perceptual processing. The second cognitive module is internal reward mechanisms for the Pepper robot. Here we adopt a model-free reinforcement learning algorithm called SARSA. And that module generates an internal reward based on the cost of perceptual processing. Here in this setting, if the agent decides to process a high energy pattern after processing the low energy one, this module will generate the negative reinforcement for the robot. And if we consider, in this case, we consider the agents perform wrong actions, and otherwise, the inverse situation, the robot will be deemed as performed correct actions. And not that these actions can be either performed by the robot itself or can be performed by the interaction partner. So here our experiment loop is grouped in two phases. In the first phase, the agent employs its associative memory and internal reward modules to perform a visual recalling while interacting with different instructors. Here, each experiment with a single instructor carried out for 500 iterations, and we repeat this 500 iterations 5 times for each instructors. In the second phase, we provide a free choice to the Pepper robot to select the trustworthy instructor to perform the next visual recalling task. Here, the Pepper robot ranks all instructors based on average cumulative rewards that it collected throughout the experiments, and the instructor that is associated with the highest energy reward selected as a trustworthy one. During the experiment, we record the following data to compare the robot performance with different instructors. Like here, we collect the cumulative average reward curves to observe the performance of the robot. And we also record the average energy consumption per state for the robot to determine the behavior of the robots, like number of the correct action, number of the wrong actions. And lastly, we record the Q matrices to derive the final policy of the reinforcement learning algorithm. So to observe the behavior of the robot with each instructor, we present the cumulative reward curves in this figure and the statistics about the experiments based on the instructor types. Here, what we can see in here, the red curve represents the reliable instructor, and this reliable instructors, the interaction with the reliable instructors lead to highest cumulative reward for the Pepper robot. And we can see in this table also the robot collects the better statistics related to its performance regarding the maximum, minimum, maximum, and the average cumulative reward throughout the instructors. And most importantly, robot achieves that performance with the reliable instructors by requesting less amount of help requests. Okay. To show the Pepper robot's learning progress, forming state, action, and reward associations throughout the instructors, throughout the experiments, we draw the average temporal difference error curves in here. And this figure shows that the red curves achieves better performance in terms of temporal difference error, which indicates that convergence towards an optimal Q functions. We also conduct 5 more iterations, and this results does not included in the paper, but we see that the results were improved after we conduct 5 more experiments with each instructors, and this result supports our previous conclusions in the paper. Finally, in this work, we show that the Pepper robot forms trust in an interaction partners based on cognitive load associated with sequential decisions. And the robot can distinguish the trustworthy instructor based on the total average cumulative reward. And in case of the free choice that we provide to the robot can select the reliable instructors for this task. And finally, you can visit this paper repository to reproduce our results or watch the experimental video. And we would like to thank our funding agencies and especially the reviewers from the ICDL conference. And thank you for your attentions. And I am ready to take the questions.